Hey guys, good morning everyone. Hey Brandon, good to see you.
Hey, how's it
Uh,
going?
Good, how are you?
Good to see you.
And the topic is how to make your voice heard in the noise of information overflow, or at least it's my free interpretation of this topic. And for those people who don't know Brandon, for those people who are on my account or in Russian account, Brandon is known for building his following on social media in a very short period of time. I think your initial experiment was 30 days on Facebook, right? To 1 million people. So he's the person who really knows how to draw attention. Can you tell me a little bit of your story, and then because I don't know the intricacies, and for the benefit of my followers, what exactly happened? Why did you even come with this idea, and what did you do to grow to 1 million followers? And I understand that you actually did it as a person who is absolutely unknown to the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, how I came about the idea. So I've been in this industry in digital and technology for 15 years, and then obviously social at the very early stages, but I worked with a lot of celebrities and athletes and corporations and growing their brands. And I had spent about 3 years developing the system of generating followers for other people, primarily journalists and celebrities here in the States. And I thought to myself, well, that's great for them, but what about everybody else? What about people starting from scratch? And also the real reason I did it is I thought it was a really good way to stand out of
Mhm.
generating 1 million followers in 30 days, that I could get a literary agent and a publishing deal from it. Because my entire career has been built and predicated on how you stand out in crowded markets, how you
Mhm.
differentiate yourself. And I had always wanted to do a book, but I didn't feel like I had a very strong hook to bring people in. And when I talked to a literary agent about the concept of doing it, it could be successful and you could get a publishing deal. So it wasn't a matter of if I could do it, it was a matter of why I should do it. And once I had
Mhm.
the why figured out, then that's when I set off on this journey to generate 1 million followers in 30 days. I initially did it on Facebook, and then I developed the system on Instagram to generate 1 million followers. And since then, we've probably used the system to generate like 15 million followers for other clients and projects that we've worked on. But in terms of like the subject matter that we're talking about today and standing out, one of the best ways that we've found to stand out is through testing. Is most people, I often say that we don't live in a world of opinion anymore. It's like you don't have to
Mhm.
have you can just go off and test and you can validate whether something works or not. And that's the
Mhm.
approach that I've taken with everything. Is I tell people that I'm definitely not the smartest person in the room, is I'll just out test everybody. And
Mhm.
that's where we really get into understanding how to stand out in a crowded market. But I'll just stop there because I know I just threw a lot at you, and just pause for a second for questions before we dive further.
I remember just a few weeks ago, I made a post where I said that, I went online because I felt that what I have to say is important and I'd like this message to be heard. It's not so much the ambition that, hey, I want to become a speaker, or I want to have a certain amount of followers. In my case, I just felt that I want people to hear what I have to say. So I want to ask whoever is joining us right now, if you'd like to be heard, your voice to be heard, leave a note, I want to be heard, or I don't know, a loudspeaker, whatever, some emoji, just so that we know that you guys care about your voice being not a quiet little thing that only your only the people around you know, but actually heard over the world. So Brandon, you said you out tested everyone. It's interesting. So, how do you go about growing your audience? Is it really just testing what works and giving them what they want, or do you also stir the conversation in the direction that is important to you?
Yeah, it's a great question. So first and foremost of how you generate a following, it's through great content. And that's with anything that you do online, whether it's generating followers, leads, sales, traffic, it comes down to the content that you're producing and how effective that content is in terms of engaging a specific audience. And that's what most people don't realize, the critical importance of that. So we always in my work with the content we produce, and primarily most of our time is spent producing content for other people, we never try and change who somebody is, and we never try and change what they're about or what they want to say. But what we do is we repackage it. So what a very smart psychologist told me, that's a professor in communication. He says, effective communication is rarely about the content, but it's about the context. It's how you wrap what you say in a specific way that people can hear it and people can engage with it. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make, especially when they're trying to stand out in a crowded market, whether that is online or offline, or whether they are trying to generate followers or they're trying to make a video go viral. It's less about what they're saying and more about what or how they're saying it. So for example, with videos on social media, the first 3 seconds is super critical in terms of success, of driving reach and driving engagement and driving followers or sales. So we will spend a tremendous amount of time just even focusing on how the first 3 seconds of the video should start, versus the title card, versus the ending of the video. We will take what somebody wants to say and just reshape it in a way that plays to the way people engage content and social platforms. And also, people don't realize that people engage on each social platform differently. People will engage with content on Facebook different than Instagram and different than on YouTube. So again, it goes back to that saying that I start out with. It's your content and what you have to say is very important, but what's most important is taking that and contextually wrapping it in a way that people can really engage with it in a meaningful way.
Can you give a more specific example of what are the mistakes people are doing, for example, that you're noticing left and right? And what is the simple maybe thing you can suggest that we stop doing this mistake and hurting ourselves? Just as an example, I know that a lot of people start their posts on Instagram or on Facebook or anywhere, or even articles or letters with an I statement, I so and so. And I know that this is damaging oftentimes because you don't engage the reader, you talk something about yourself. So can you give any little tips for us?
Absolutely. So to your point, you made a brilliant observation in that people will often start off with I. And I often think, I'm not saying that never do that. I mean, definitely there's some situations where you can, and there's situations of it being successful. But I think that one of the obstacles that people run into with creating content is they are thinking not about their audience, but thinking about themselves and what they want to express. And flipping it on its head and thinking about the person scrolling through Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, they're being exposed to all this other content. Like, what is it they're looking for? What is going to make you stand out? What is going to make them stop? And one of the biggest mistakes that I will see people make is they will often say, like, every topic has been covered. There's not a single topic that's unique or different. So I'll give you an example of this: meditation. Meditation's been around for thousands of years, and it's more prevalent than ever. And people will essentially, if they want to talk about meditation, they'll say the obvious. They'll say what everybody else says. Well, meditation is the key to success. Meditation is the key to stillness. Meditation leads to happiness. And as soon as you see that in your feed, you're like, okay, I already know that. So we're working on a social video right now where the headline is "Meditation is a Scam." And I don't believe meditation is a scam. I've been meditating for 12 years. But what it does is it subverts expectations. It flips what you normally see on its head to grab people's attention. We draw them in and we say, and the video is about, hey, listen, meditation is so popular today. There's so much misinformation that a lot of people are being taught, or they're reading about the fact that you're just supposed to sit down and clear your head, which is frankly impossible. So there's so many people out there that are trying to get into meditation that ultimately fail and think meditation is a scam or meditation doesn't work because of the misinformation in the market. And then we explain the psychology and science behind meditation. So again, it's like, how, if you're talking about a subject in a crowded market, whether it's meditation or business success, entrepreneurship, yoga, whatever it is, how can you position your unique point of view in a way that's different than everybody else? In the same way that I started off a video that said meditation is a scam. Or we had another video that said, warning, safety is dangerous. Again, that's subverting expectations and flipping it on its head. I think that one of the other things that makes us successful, and we see the trend is, and this goes for videos and social content, but more importantly, it goes when you're trying to sell a product, or you're trying to launch a book or anything like that, is what is the outcome that your audience is seeking? And then develop something around that. So it's like 1 million followers in 30 days. That, I'm not saying like how to do something. I'm not positioning it like social media marketing, which is a very crowded element, as I took this hook of 1 million followers in 30 days as an outcome that attracts people to bring them into a larger conversation.
So you know what my question is, because I get the idea with the hooks, and I'm a little blunt, but let's think about that. In the old days, everybody knew that girls in bikinis, beautiful girls in bikinis, sold cars. So all the car commercials had girls in bikinis. When I joined Instagram and started increasing my following a little more consciously, I was very aware that certain types of pictures attract more likes, more comments, more engagement. And just recently I was looking at statistics for newsletters, weekly newsletters, and I noticed that the copywriter who sends them, she caught on the idea that, you know, sex in subject line sells. So a few subject lines I noticed with the word sex or naked or whatever in them, which is in itself not a big deal, but if you run something consistently for a year or two, or like for 10 years, where do you draw that line between being scandalous and becoming yellow press in a sense, and actually using it from time to time? Or do you have to use something like that all the time if you want to keep grabbing people's attention? How do you find the balance? How much do you go for scandal versus actually being being what you are?
It's a great question, and I'll say that you don't have to go that route. You can create a hook for anything, and I just want to preface it by saying what I'm talking about is not clickbait. It's not about tricking people. It's because if you have a great scandalous headline or a great headline or a great hook, but you don't have the substance to back it up, it doesn't mean anything if you don't have a compelling product, service, or story. And I would also say that, okay, sure, you could use a scandalous headline for a short period of time, but eventually it's going to get fatigued. Eventually it's not going to work anymore. And there is an example, and we do this a lot in anything we do, is we find references. We find references of people that are successful. So when you talk about women posting scandalous photos or bikini photos or whatever, you can find plenty of women that don't do that. You look at like a Rachel Hollis or Gabrielle Bernstein, there's plenty of very successful women that have achieved success without doing those types of things. So definitely you can always stay true to your brand and stay true to yourself and not have to cave into something just because it works, because there's an example of every type of format working. It's just finding the ways that it works for you. And again, like I covered 2 topics. I covered meditation, and I didn't do anything like scandalous with it. I just flipped it on its head, subverted expectations to bring people in. But no, you don't have to do like tap into sex or anything that's scandalous in order to, is not the only way to grab attention. You can do it a number of different ways, and we do it across multiple industries. And that's why I know and so confident in saying that is we work with Mind Valley, for example. We work with a nanotechnology company. We work with a celebrity, a professional athlete, a vitamin supplement company, a company that's saving the planet. And we don't use the same like headline for each of them. We have to come up with unique ones for each brand.
I think it's a big difference between just trying to be scandalous and using clickbait, as you said, versus presenting what you have to say in an unexpected way. So I believe that's the main difference.
100%. Your heart has to be in the right place. Again, like creating a video calling meditations a scam, I'm doing that because I care about the people that have failed at meditation, because I truly believe that it can impact their lives in a positive way. They've just had a negative experience, or they've had misinformation delivered to them. So I'm trying to draw those people in to the conversation, or people that have never tried meditation or have always been against it, to flip their perception around it. And it's coming from a good place, not to trick them into anything.
You know, I want to shift now the conversation in a slightly different direction. What do we need to know, and how do we need to change as a humanity, as a person maybe, to survive in the future? Because the future is going to be different from what was in the past, and there are a lot of different angles to approach that. So from what you're doing, from your professional point of view, how we as humans, and I'm not talking about businesses right now, but just humans, individuals, how do we need to change to fit into the future world? Because, well, even the future world is a speculation in a way, you know, whatever it's going to be.
So I would say the area that I like to speak about, and because there's so many different ways that you could approach that question, the way that I look at it is, my work is to help amplify people that can change the world in a positive way. So to me, is like anybody that has something to offer the world, whether it's a piece of content, a product, a service, or an event, you have to recognize that we live in a world where there's so much noise. On digital platforms, there's over 60 billion messages sent on digital platforms each day. When you talk about advertisements, they say, there's a Forbes article that I read that said the average person is exposed to between 4,000 to 10,000 ads a day.
Oh,
so
God.
In that crowded market, you have to find a way to and adapt to stand out. Otherwise, you're going to get lost in the clutter, and then you can't have that positive impact in the world. So as this continues to progress with social platforms and everybody becoming connected, I mean, people don't realize a third of the world's population is still not connected to the internet. As more people on board, as more content's created, you have to really adapt and innovate in a way that you can make sure that your voice stands out and make sure that you can get heard so that you can achieve a positive impact on your life, your family, and the world's population at large.
So do you think that in the future, our voice needs to be louder compared to even, let's say, 50 years ago? I know we're not...
I wouldn't say louder. I think just being more strategic. I don't think it's about being loud. I think it's about being smart about it, about repositioning, about thinking differently. I think that's the key, and that's where we have a tremendous amount of success.
So there are a lot of areas where the humanity is getting this big gap. So before it was very simple, rich and poor, or let's say by birth, you know, some people were born into more successful families than the others. And as time goes on, these gaps are coming into so many places, like the education gap or information gap. People are just not as plugged into the rest of the world. So do you think having the smart voice and being able to be heard is this other area where we're going to separate ourselves from the rest of the humanity? And by us, I mean the few percent of those people who are actually, you know, are your following, my following, and I'm talking about Western world. It's a fact. People, you know, we are the minority who actually has access to this kind of life. Do you think this gap is going to increase also based on our ability to be heard?
In terms of what people can do, you mean the gap between the rich and the poor, or?
Well, rich and the poor is a little, it's a little bit from the past. I think currently it's more than that, because even whatever area you look at, the gaps are getting in everywhere, whether it's education, whether it's medicine, whether it's access to information. Even the democracies depend so much on access to internet, on free speech. And I see that this gap is happening in more and more areas. Do you think that this what you are teaching, the ability to be heard, to stand out in the noise, is another area where we may be again separating ourselves from the majority of humanity who are less privileged?
Well, to me, it's all about who takes the information and uses it. I think that a lot of the work that I do is we push a lot of content into emerging markets. I have partners and friends that are investing a lot of money into emerging markets because they see that's a large growth potential. But to me, the concepts that we talk about and helping people get their voice be heard, it could help somebody in an impoverished city. It could help somebody in India or Africa, in the same way that it could happen to somebody in the United States. So I think that there's only so much that we can do as individuals to put education out into the marketplace. It's really up to the individual to take that information and do something with it. But it's also really important that the leaders of these different parts of the world that are impoverished really help shape that ability to give people confidence and inspiration and motivation to take action. Because once you're connected to the internet, anything's possible. I mean, we hire people on Upwork and other platforms from all over the world because we have access to connect with them. And I love nothing more to hire somebody in the Philippines or Africa or India that doesn't get the same opportunities as people here get in the United States. So I definitely think that it could go either way, to be honest. I mean, to me, I want to democratize that information, and Mindvalley is doing an amazing job of that as well, as educating people all over the world and giving them the tools to succeed. At the same time, I think the infrastructures of these places have to support that, because just to give you an example, is like going to Europe is oftentimes I see in Europe, they're a bit more risk averse than here in the States. Is here in the States, failure is embraced. Like, we embrace failure. It's not something to be frowned upon. But in certain parts of Europe, oftentimes, like, if you fail, it's like a black scar. And those are things that I think we really need to shift on a more macro level, so that people feel that they can have the confidence to stand out and get their voice be heard. And that's what I think ultimately will close the gap.
Thank you. I actually sometimes don't even know why I ask certain questions, but I guess they just cross my mind. But I want to talk about another gap, the gap between extroverts and introverts. And since I want to go into this topic, I want to also ask the followers, or those who are calling in right now, to leave a note if you're an introvert, because somehow with age I've noticed that I'm much more surrounded by introverts. Tell me how easy it is to be heard if you are by nature not a very extroverted person. You don't like to talk, you don't like to draw attention to yourself, but everybody understands that, you know, contemporary world requires you to communicate. Even if you just run a business, businesses with a human face attract people and clients much better than you know, faceless businesses. So do the introverts have a chance in this world?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm naturally an introvert. I'm one of those people. I think that there's a few ways that you can approach it. I mean, one is with practice, it gets easier. Two is you can pick a medium. Like, you could be an author, you could write books, you could write articles. It doesn't mean you have to be in front of the camera. Or you can also work for a company or work for somebody else that you're supplying them with the information and having somebody write, or you're writing for somebody, or you're doing video production for somebody. So there's so many different ways to tackle it. It's just finding what your strengths are, what you really want to do. Because I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, you have to just get in front of a camera and get yourself more comfortable. Because for some people, they just don't want to do it. And I'm a firm believer that life is too short. You should do what you're passionate about. So maybe it is writing, or another medium that works directly for you. There's nothing to say that you have to be on video or you have to get up on stage to be successful. You can be successful in many different ways. And just finding the right fit that makes sense for your personality, for your strengths and your weaknesses.
So thank you once again. And for everybody who is still listening in, I would like to ask you to leave a heart for Brendon, for being generous, for joining us, and for just sharing his wisdom with us. And
okay. Thanks for having me.
Yes. See you. Bye.
All right. Bye.